Out of the cold. I hated the heat. I hated unpredictability. And more than anything in the world, I hated when my perfectly calculated, flawless world crumbled. At 30 years old, I had achieved everything I ever aimed for in Seoul. I worked as a senior architectural analyst and urban planning strategist at one of the country's largest corporations. My life was engineered with geometric precision. A high-rise apartment in an elite complex overlooking the cold waters of the Han River, strictly scheduled workouts, flawless custom-tailored suits, and a constant, measured routine. I had a fiancée, Sujin, the daughter of a key business partner of my father. Our union was balanced, logical, and convenient for both families. Sujin was refined, reserved, always impeccably dressed, and cold. Our life resembled a structured calendar where even the expression of feelings was scheduled in advance. Everything suited me completely. I wasn't looking for change. I didn't believe in romantic chaos. I despised spontaneity, and I genuinely believed that emotional outbursts were a sign of poor discipline. When management unexpectedly announced that I was the one being sent on an extended assignment to Manila to audit and prepare for the demolition of a large residential sector in the Makati district, my world developed a deep crack. The Philippines? I thought with distaste, packing my suitcases under Sujin's dry, approving gaze. Endless muggy chaos, filth, high crime rates, and a foreign, incomprehensible culture. I flew there as if going to penal servitude. On the way to Incheon Airport, I made a firm promise to myself. Lock myself in my hotel room, do my work strictly from clock in to clock out, avoid any unnecessary contact with the locals, and return to my native Seoul at the very first opportunity. The first shock awaited me right after landing at Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Sticky, heavy, humid, tropical air crashed over me as soon as I stepped outside the terminal. But an even greater shock was the behavior of the people around me. In Korea, personal space is sacred, and on a stranger's face, you are far more likely to see a mask of polite detachment. Here, everything was different. The guard at the exit, noticing my confused and displeased face as I tried to spot the license plate of my booked car, didn't just point out the way, but genuinely, with an incredibly warm and open smile, wished me a wonderful day and asked if I was tired after the long flight. The taxi driver, an elderly man with a mustache, rejoiced the entire way to the Makati Business Center simply because I was visiting his home country for the first time. He chattered endlessly about his family, his 5 children, boasted of their achievements, and persistently treated me to homemade pastries his wife had packed for him that morning. In Seoul, such an intrusion into personal boundaries would seem like the height of impropriety. But here, on these congested city streets, there wasn't a drop of pretense or self-interest. They weren't smiling out of professional courtesy. Their eyes radiated a genuine, living, warming light. The next day, I arrived at the office of our partner Philippine company for the first time. I put on my strictest navy blue suit, buttoned every button, and wore my usual detached mask, hoping to overpower the local employees right from the doorstep with strict control and discipline. However, my plan collapsed in the very first minute. I wasn't met with dry responses, but with a spread table and incredible hospitality. Every morning, as if by magic, a cup of freshly brewed local coffee and warm, oven-fresh pandesal pastries appeared on my desk. When I tried to push through bureaucratic hurdles and grew nervous over delayed reports, my colleagues didn't react with aggression or defensiveness. They rallied together to help me, diffuse the tension with light-hearted jokes, and constantly asked with genuine concern, "Sir, have you eaten today? You shouldn't work on an empty stomach. It's bad for your health." Their warmth, their remarkable solidarity, what the locals call with deep pride, bayanihan, shattered my stereotypes day after day. I was used to the fierce, exhausting competition of Seoul, where every coworker is a rival. But I had landed in a world where someone else's trouble, fatigue, or bad mood was treated by those around them as their own. But the real storm that would alter my destiny was waiting ahead. The project was delayed due to social issues. On the site planned for an ultra-modern, multi-purpose business center, there was an old, densely populated neighborhood. Management in Seoul demanded a swift, unyielding eviction of the residents. I decided to visit the site personally to assess the scale of the risks and prepare a final report for the investors. There, amidst narrow, winding alleys filled with the ringing laughter of children, the mouth-watering aroma of roasted lechon pork, the sound of an old guitar, and laundry hanging between houses, I saw her for the first time. She was completely unlike the manicured, perfectly made up, identical woman from Seoul's elite districts. She possessed a natural, pure, proud beauty that radiated incredible inner strength and grace. Her deep, captivating brown eyes seemed to peer straight into the most secret, carefully hidden corners of my soul. Her name was Leah. She worked as a coordinator at the local community center and volunteered on her own time to defend the rights of local residents against the appetites of large developers. When I, holding a leather folder packed with dry charts and legal documents, tried to explain the inevitability of the upcoming demolition and eviction in an intentionally stern official tone, Leah didn't shout or cause a scene. She simply looked at me. In her eyes rested such a deep, wise sorrow and genuine compassion for my callousness that my heart squeezed with an unfamiliar, aching pain for the first time in 30 years. "You only see numbers, financial risks, and tons of concrete here, sir," she said softly yet firmly in flawless English before letting out a soft, slightly sad smile. "But behind these flimsy wooden walls live real human hearts. Generations of history reside here, and true love lives here. You come from a distant, cold, and very lonely world, but here, on our land, we are capable of warming even the coldest, most frozen stone." I wanted to object, to quote clauses from the contract and urban planning laws, but the words caught in my throat. That evening, I couldn't fall asleep in my suite. Her voice, her gentle image, and that unbelievable, all-encompassing warmth from which I had been running so hard my entire conscious life forced me to question, for the very first time, whether my former life in Korea had ever truly been happy or right. From that day on, my once orderly life turned into chaos, but it was a chaos filled for the first time with deep, genuine meaning. I began desperately searching for any pretexts or formal excuses to return again and again to that poor, noisy, yet unbelievably vibrant neighborhood. Officially, to management in Seoul, this was labeled as an additional analysis of social risks and terrain. Unofficially, I lived from sunrise to sunset solely to carve out at least a few minutes by Lee's side. I watched how she lived, and with each passing day, my amazement only grew. She owned no designer bags, expensive jewelry, or personal vehicle, but her everyday life was immeasurably richer, brighter, and more fulfilling than mine. She selflessly cared for her bedridden, severely ill grandmother, her Lola, helped every neighbor who fell on hard times, shared her last piece of bread, and through it all, always, absolutely always, found genuine reasons for joy and gratitude. The wondrous Philippine culture revealed itself to me through her actions, a reverent, almost sacred respect for the older generation, the incredible strength of family ties, and the capacity to sing, dance, and laugh from the heart even through tears and hardship. One evening, after we had stayed late at the community center discussing social programs, the power went out in the neighborhood. A quiet tropical night settled in, filled with the chirping of cicadas and the fragrance of blooming frangipani flowers nearby. So we wouldn't sit in the dark, Leah lit a few simple candles and brought out hot sour sinigang soup from her house along with 2 clay cups of local herbal tea. We sat on a narrow wooden bench in the yard, the candlelight casting long shadows against the bamboo walls, while in the gathering darkness only our eyes shone. "Why do you always smile, Leah?" I asked, hesitantly studying her delicate, beautiful profile. "You have so many problems. Your community is under threat of destruction. You have no savings, no certainty about tomorrow. How do you find the strength to be joyful?" Leah turned gently toward me and reached out, her warm palm barely touching my cold hand. From that simple touch, a powerful electric surge rushed through my entire body. "There is too little time in life to waste it on fear, anger, and sadness," she answered softly, looking straight into my eyes. "Real wealth never sits in bank accounts or gets measured in square meters. It lies in who you love, who you manage to help in this life, and who you share this quiet evening with. In Seoul, you all live for some abstract tomorrow, for careers and reports. But here in the Philippines, we live for love, right now in this very second." That evening, we kissed for the first time. It was not a cold, restrained kiss of routine like the ones I had grown accustomed to over years with Sujing. It was a flash of fire, an emotional explosion, an all-consuming feeling that instantly burned all my psychological defenses and rational arguments to ashes. In that second, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was lost. I had fallen in love with this woman with every ounce of passion I possessed, so desperately and deeply that my entire past world collapsed like a brittle house of cards. I adored her laugh, her voice, the way she cared for me, and how she genuinely delighted in simple pleasures like a beautiful sunset or a piece of sweet fruit. Yet over our newly sparked love, a dark, destructive shadow was already looming. In distant Seoul, Sujing was waiting for me. Our wedding was already planned, and our parents were reserving the banquet hall. On top of that, the executives at my corporation were demanding that I sign the final report, giving the green light for the forced demolition of Leah's neighborhood. I found myself trapped in a terrible vice, squeezed between my duty, family pressure, a successful career, and this incredible sacred love that had made me feel like a truly living human being for the first time in my life. I tried desperately to find a compromise. Spending sleepless nights over blueprints, I completely redesigned the architectural project, altering the specifications so that Leah's neighborhood would be fully preserved, restored, and seamlessly integrated into the business center's new park zone. It required colossal effort and financial sacrifice from our company. I fought for every house, for every family, but my management in Seoul remained utterly unyielding. Suddenly, and without any warning, Sujin flew into Manila. She appeared in my hotel lobby, cold, flawless, wearing a new luxury ring on her finger, her face a mask of ice. "You've changed completely," she stated from the doorway of my room, surveying my belongings with disgust. "You've become a total stranger. You spend your days in some squalid slums protecting uneducated people. My father is extremely displeased with your reports. We are returning to Seoul in 3 days. The project is being shut down in its current form, and the neighborhood will be cleared by force using heavy machinery." Sujin happened to spot a small photo of Leah lying among the blueprints on my desk. There was no female jealousy in her eyes, only cold calculation, a prick of wounded vanity, and deep contempt. That very evening, while I was out at the site, she contacted my superiors in Seoul and forwarded them my alternative blueprints, accusing me of professional incompetence, betraying company interests, and engaging in a personal affair with a local activist. The next day, Leah was summoned to the city administration. Representatives from my company presented her and the community council with a document indicating that I was the primary author and developer of the original plan for the total demolition of their homes. It was a malicious half-truth. The document was an outdated draft, but it did bear my personal signature. I will never in my life forget the look on Leah's face when she walked out of the administration office. In her beautiful brown eyes, which had always radiated light, hope, and tenderness, rested heavy tears of profound betrayal and inhuman pain. "Were you just playing with me this whole time?" she asked softly, her voice cracking with quiet sobs. "Did you come from your rich, comfortable world just to take away the last thing we have, laugh at us, and break my heart?" "Leah, please, listen to me. It's a cruel lie. I redesigned the entire project for you," I pleaded in desperation, reaching out to grasp her hands, but she drew back in horror. "Go away," she whispered, a first bitter tear rolling down her pale cheek. "Go back to your cold, heartless country. I don't believe a single word you say anymore." I was stripped of my project management duties in disgrace. My authority was revoked, and I was ordered to hand over my documents and prepare for an immediate flight back to Seoul. Sujing was triumphant, genuinely believing she had saved my career, my future, and our lucrative dynastic marriage. But I was utterly broken. Every step through the streets of Manila felt like an impossible burden, as if iron weights were chained to my feet. I saw the same genuine smiles on the faces of the locals around me, but they no longer warmed my soul. I felt like the ultimate traitor, someone who had destroyed the faith and heart of the purest, most noble person on earth. The day before my scheduled departure, a terrible disaster struck Lee's neighborhood. In one of the old wooden buildings, a massive fire broke out due to faulty wiring. In the dry, tropical air, the flames spread at lightning speed, leaping from one fragile roof to the next. I was in the city center when I caught sight of thick plumes of black smoke rising from the direction of the community. Ignoring the shouts of Sujin trying to grab my sleeve and the warnings of the hotel staff, I sprinted out onto the street. Unable to catch a taxi due to gridlock traffic, I ran on foot through several districts, cutting through crowds, blooding my feet against the pavement, and gasping for air. My heart pounded in my throat. I felt no exhaustion. In my head, a single continuous prayer echoed. "Lord, please save her. Punish me for all my pride, but spare Lee and her loved ones." When I finally reached the edge of the neighborhood, a terrifying scene unfolded before my eyes. Several houses were already engulfed in roaring flames, and people were panicking. Yet, even in the face of this catastrophe, the residents displayed incredible heroism. Local young men passing buckets of water down a human chain fought to contain the fire until fire trucks could arrive. Men carried elderly residents out of danger, while women led frightened children away. It was that very spirit of Bayanihan displayed in the face of mortal danger. Without a second thought, I sprinted into the epicenter of the fire. Leah's house stood right next to a burning building. The fragile wooden porch was already smoldering, and desperate cries echoed from inside. Bursting into the house through a smoke-choked hallway, I saw Leah. She was exhausting her last bits of strength trying to pull her paralyzed grandmother out of the room, but a heavy oak wardrobe knocked over by a collapse had blocked the doorway. "Help! Someone! Save Lola!" Leah cried, coughing from the acrid smoke and collapsing from exertion. I didn't hesitate. Scrambling into the scorching room, I wedged my shoulder against the heavy, charred wardrobe. The hot wood burned my skin with a hiss, and sharp pain shot through my back, but I let out a fierce, primal roar of exertion, throwing every ounce of my strength into shifting the massive piece of furniture aside. "Grab Lola! Get her out! Now!" I yelled, feeling the smoke eat away at my lungs. Leah, recognizing me, froze for a split second in shock, but instantly gathered her grandmother and, with the help of a neighbor who rushed in behind us, carried her out through the cleared passage onto the street. Just as they reached safety, a smoldering ceiling beam snapped and crashed down, striking me hard across the back and my right leg. Overcoming blinding pain and burns, I managed to crawl out of the burning house into the open air. On a safe patch of ground where neighbors were organizing aid, I carried Lea's grandmother in my arms over to an arrived ambulance. Then, pushing my pain deep down, I went right back. Alongside the local Filipino man, I worked shoulder to shoulder until morning, helping put out localized fires, clearing debris, carrying out salvaged belongings, and handing out water to victims. That night, I completely ceased to be a pampered foreigner in an expensive suit. I was a man fighting alongside them for their home. When the fire was finally fully extinguished and the first golden rays of the tropical sun appeared over the horizon, I collapsed onto the dry earth right at the edge of the damaged neighborhood, thoroughly exhausted, covered in soot, and bearing burns on my arms. Lea walked slowly over to me. In her trembling hands was a damp cloth and a cup of clean water. She quietly sank to her knees beside me right on the dusty ground. Her eyes were red from tears and a sleepless night.
"Why did you come back?"
she asked softly, her voice strained, filled with a mixture of pain, boundless wonder, and a flicker of hope breaking through the dark. "You could have burned to death in there. Your flight to Seoul leaves in a few hours." I raised my eyes and looked at her beloved, most beautiful face, gently wiping away a streak of soot on her cheek with my trembling hand. "Because without you, my life in Seoul isn't a life at all, Leah," I answered, fighting the dull ache in my blistered lips. "My heart belongs to you forever. My real home is here now. I never betrayed you. I fought for your home, for your community, and I will fight for our love until my very last breath. If you drive me away right now, I will stay in this city as a simple construction worker, but I will never fly away from here again." Leah looked at me, and an unstoppable flood of tears poured from her beautiful brown eyes. But these were no longer tears of grief or betrayal. She tenderly pressed my head to her chest and wept, desperately, genuinely, with a deep, long-awaited relief. "You crazy Korean," she whispered through her sobs, kissing my soot-stained face. "You absolute crazy man." That very day, I made the most important and absolute choice of my life. I returned to the hotel where a furious Sujing was waiting with packed suitcases. I met her tirade with complete, icy calm. I neatly packed my personal belongings, slid the expensive engagement ring off my finger, and set it softly on the polished table. "Our wedding is cancelled, Sujing," I said firmly and confidently. "I am officially resigning from the company and I am staying in the Philippines." "You have completely lost your mind," she screamed, dropping every bit of her so aristocratic poise. "You're trading a brilliant career, vast wealth, social status, and your family's respect for a life in a poor neighborhood over some girl? You'll regret this in a week. You come crawling back to Seoul on your knees." "For the first time in 30 years, I am a genuinely happy man, Sujin," I replied with a gentle smile. "I finally learned what real love, human warmth, mutual support, and sincerity feel like. Forgive me if you can, but my only path lies here." The backlash from my family and executive management in Seoul was harsh. I was immediately stripped of all financial bonuses, and my personal savings in Korean accounts were temporarily frozen due to corporate lawsuits over breach of contract. I was left virtually penniless in a foreign country with an injured leg and no official job. Yet, to my own surprise, for the first time in my life, I felt no panic or fear, only an exhilarating, uplifting, absolute sense of freedom. The residents of the neighborhood, learning that I had walked away from a wealthy life back home, saved Lola, and helped fight the fire alongside them, welcomed me into their extended family like a true son. They provided me with modest but clean shelter free of charge, treated my burns with local medicinal ointments, and every day different families took turns bringing me home-cooked meals. I witnessed firsthand the incredible power of the Filipino community in action. They rebuilt their damaged homes, singing, joking, and helping one another constantly, as if no tragedy had ever touched their lives. Utilizing my professional skills as a top-tier architect and urban planning strategist, I didn't give up. I drafted a completely new, unique, eco-friendly, and remarkably affordable plan for the total revitalization of the neighborhood. I managed to secure international grants and charitable foundation funding. Together with Leah, we personally visited city departments, proving the residents' legal rights to the land. City officials, seeing a foreigner fighting so passionately and selflessly for their fellow countrymen, were stunned. My new project was approved. The former demolition order was officially revoked, and the neighborhood was designated a protected historical and cultural community zone. A full year passed. Today is a special day, the most important day of my life, the day my heart finally found eternal peace, profound meaning, and boundless, measureless happiness. On the powdery white shore of Boracay Island, our entire Manila community gathered, alongside dozens of new friends I had made over the year. I am wearing a traditional Filipino formal, barong Tagalog, hand-woven from the finest pineapple fiber and decorated with intricate embroidery. I stand beneath a wedding arch woven from fresh white orchids and fragrant jasmine garlands. A gentle sea breeze licks my face, and the warm tropical sun bathes the beach in a golden light. Suddenly, the ceremonial music shifts. An extraordinarily tender, moving Filipino love song, Ikaw, begins to play. I turn slowly and freeze, forgetting how to breathe. Walking toward me across the soft white sand is Leah. She wears a simple yet dazzlingly beautiful white dress that flows in soft waves. Fresh tropical flowers are woven into her long dark hair, and on her lips rests the same genuine warm smile that had once melted my icy Korean world. But above all, it's her eyes. They glow with a love so deep, boundless, pure, and sacred that my breath catches entirely. As she takes her final steps toward me, I can no longer hold back the emotions surging within. The first tears of absolute, indescribable, overwhelming happiness well in my eyes and drop onto the embroidered fabric of my barong. I remember my former cold soul, my lonely evenings in a vacant high-rise apartment, my meaningless existence entirely dictated by dry schedules and reports. And I look at this earthly paradise, at these wonderful, kind people who have become my true family, and at the woman who gave me a real soul. Leah comes right up to me. Noticing the tears streaming down my cheeks, she smiles through her emotions and, with infinite tenderness, wipes them away with her warm palm. Huwag ka nang umiyak, mahal ko, she whispers in Tagalog, her own voice trembling with rising tears of immense joy. You're finally home. I'm only crying because I'm terrified I'll wake up and find myself back in the past. I answer her softly, gently taking her small hands in mine. I arrived in your country completely blind, and you taught me to see the true beauty of the world. I arrived dead inside, and you taught me how to truly love. The priest delivers the sacred vows, and when we are officially pronounced husband and wife, the entire beach erupts in deafening cheers, applause, laughter, and blessings. The people from our neighborhood play guitars, sing beloved folk songs, and lay out massive feast tables. I hold Leah tightly, pressing her close to my heart. In this sacred moment, I gaze out over the endless turquoise ocean at the brilliant sun overhead, and I know beyond any doubt, I will never ever go back to my former life. I am staying here forever. Surrounded by this human warmth, these genuine smiles, and this great all-conquering love that endured fire, pain, and trials to give me my true, everlasting home.